Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Founder podcast. I'm your host, Luke Beestall. I'm joined in the Nottingham studio today with Yvette. She is from London, so she's come to our studio. We're going to have a great conversation today. She is a performance psychologist, 20 years experience, which I think this is going to be insightful for us in the room and you as the audience watching and listening back, because we're going to delve deep into her story and actually how this is unraveled. She's a performance coach. She has got a personality that we was chatting before, actually we had a bit of food, that's so strong, and the resilience and just how she's discovered this new purpose to become who she is today, I think is going to be really good to sort of delve deep into. So Yvette, I just want to welcome you into our studio today. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to it. Never been to Nottingham, so yay.
First time, ticked it off.
Yes, exactly.
What do you actually think so far then? I mean, obviously you've
It's
seen...
very quaint. It's very
Okay.
quaint. Yeah, it's kind of what I expected. I did do a bit of Googling before I came.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so obviously, welcome to Nottingham as well.
Yes.
And, you know, for anybody sort of tuning in right now, I know I gave a brief intro, but if you could just give them a bit of a summary about, you know, obviously who you are, sort of what it is that you love to do day to day, that'd be a good...
Yeah,
sort
of
of
course.
intro.
Yeah, so obviously Yvette, I'm a performance psychologist by trade. I've worked in the sort of environment of high performance, high pressure, high stakes for about 20 years now, small, medium-sized businesses, corporates, and I've spent a lot of time looking at performance and what makes some people thrive in those types of environments, but also what causes people to suffer in those environments. And yes, as much as it is the environment itself and what you're surrounded by, some of it is also the psychology that you have within you and the things that impact you. So I became fascinated with it a very long time ago, both from my own personal journey and how I've performed and the environments that got the best out of me, but also just from being in those types of places and seeing what it can do to people when they're really in the best place, but also what it can do to them when they're not. So hopefully, as you said, some of that will be useful to the audience.
Yeah, it's going to be useful. I think obviously they're about high pressure environments. Obviously, I feel, you know, I'm sure a lot of people will agree on this, that we feel under pressure quite a lot today. Just from your sort of experience, whether it's personally yourself or the people that you've worked with, what's the most common sort of type of pressure that you come across? Where does it stem from?
I think it's pressure to perform in everything that you do every single day. I think we were talking about this earlier, right? People don't just spend time anymore just being.
Okay.
And just sort of showing up in a way that feels natural to them and that they connect with. We're always in this space of someone expects something from us, whether that's in work, whether that's in business, just in life in general. So I kind of almost look at it as like being a performing monkey. You're always showing up to execute on something.
So we're doing all the time.
We're doing all the time, and you're never just being.
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of going, oh, this is me in my natural state. This is who I am. There's always this element of feeling I've got to put a face on for that particular audience or to show up in this environment in that way. So I think it's that pressure to perform constantly. And we were talking about earlier, you know, we get so much external feedback all the time. People love to tell you that you're doing a great job or you're not doing not such a great job. And again, sometimes that feedback is invited, which is great, but also most of the time the feedback isn't invited. So not only are you potentially putting pressure on yourself to perform, now you have this entire audience telling you that what you've just done either isn't good enough or it's not up to their version of a standard. So you're getting both the internal pressure, but also the external side.
Yeah, I love that you shared that, because I think, we're pleasing, you know, we're people pleasing. We're sort of that being part. It's like, who are we? What's our real self? What's our real personality? We sort of are checking in with ourselves becomes quite hard. We're very fast paced, not slowing down.
Absolutely.
So for you then, I love this being and doing part. If someone was sort of you know, I think this would be great for you to give as an example, because probably people are like, do you know what? Yeah, I'm on that hamster wheel. I am. I'm a doer. I'm doing all the time to please others.
Yeah.
What could they do to probably tap a little bit more into that being side? What would you say?
I mean, you have to come back to who you are,
Right.
right, as a person. I think that's sometimes where we start to get we lose sight of who
Yes.
we are, what we want, what's important to us, what's my purpose, why do I get out of bed every single day, right? So you then naturally get on this hamster wheel of constantly just doing, because you don't actually know what it feels like to just be. So, like sometimes you'll hear the phrase, people thrive under pressure. And I'm certainly,
Yeah.
well, I love it, right? Give me a bit of pressure.
Yeah.
I remember doing my bachelor's degree and I wrote my dissertation in like a week. Because I said to myself, I love pressure. Like, I love having 6 days to get this thing together. And that's great in small doses. Pressure can obviously be incredibly helpful and it can get you to do more things. But if that becomes your baseline, and you never understand what it means to just be calm, be collected, be happy with where you are, not always being on that treadmill of wanting the next thing. I think you'll always find yourself chasing that next bit of pressure. And instead of it becoming something that's helpful, it actually starts to become something that's a little bit debilitating and just sort of throws you off track, and you never feel like you're good enough because you're chasing this pressure that's not sustainable.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of resonance there for me, as I mean, hearing you out, and obviously being in this like business world, and obviously people sort of listening who's not even in just like entrepreneurship. I mean, even just day to day, there's that pressure of wanting to thrive and feeling that sort of expectation from others, and being in that. And obviously that can be chaotic. That can be, like say, unnecessary in a way where it just leads you to burnout, as an example, or overwhelmingness. So obviously it sounds very much like this has come from an experience in your life to be able to now lead it and preach it. Could you share to our audience something that maybe that you've been through that has caused you to sort of learn and then come out the other side?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of sort of, pressure that I think wasn't necessarily mine.
Okay.
So I lost both my parents when I was really young. My mum when I was 13 and my dad about 21. And there was always a bit of pressure from them to academically be incredibly strong, because I was naturally quite a strong academic. But then that became just part of who I was.
Right.
So there was always this pressure to get A's, be in the top 3 of my class, be the strongest person, be a high achiever. And don't get me wrong, I loved it. I loved being able to identify as being a high achiever. But that came with a lot of pressure that I think was very unnecessary at such a young age. And obviously when I lost them, that was the only identity that I had learned over time, was pressure equals achievement. Because I had so much pressure, and then the outcome was always to achieve and be on stage and be number one, that then became the default state. Well, if pressure equals achievement, then surely that's just the way to be. And I think it was only, not even that long ago, maybe 4 years ago, I properly burnt out. Like, I always used to consider myself what I would call a high functioning burnout person. You wouldn't have said I was burning out. I didn't show the typical signs that people look for when you talk about burnout. Like, I was I am incredibly successful.
Yeah.
I hold it together. I still exercise. I eat well. I do all the things that it would look like if you were, really, really highly achieving. But I was just burnt out because it had become such a natural state to be under pressure all the time. And it wasn't until, I remember this, I sat in a toilet at work and I bawled my eyes out. This was 2019, I think. And I just saw, this can't be it.
Right.
Like, this can't be success. Because if this is success, then I don't want that. Because no one should be sitting in a toilet at work crying.
No, I think, thank you for sharing that as well, by the way. I mean,
Of
obviously,
course, yeah.
sending my condolences with family. I mean,
Thank you.
to have that. And, you know, I know you shared a little bit about this earlier, and obviously, you know, you said you're comfortable sharing it. Just that, you know, pressure from, you know, our societal generations, you know, going through, it can be a common thing where, you know, obviously they want the best for you,
Yeah.
but ultimately, you know, they want to be proud of what they've brought into the world. And I know there was obviously from what you've
Yeah.
done. And but for you at the same time, what you're from what I'm sort of hearing is that at the same time it was a little bit sort of like, well, where am I? Who am I? When they sort because
Yeah.
obviously all you'd been used to is, like you say, that sort of achievement, pressure to achievement, pressure to achievement. But there was a point throughout your life where you'd think, well, actually, yeah, I don't sort of want to be doing that all of the time because I don't see it as sustainable. I want to sort of find out this being part, like who am I as a person? Where's my life design going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think, you know, and I think that's actually where I started to recognize that success can mean more than one thing.
Yeah.
It's not just success on paper or success in terms of your job title or success in terms of, I work for a FTSE 100 or I earn this much money. You know, success can mean lots of different things. But the problem is, I think a lot of the time, we never determine what success means to us. We just borrow it from other people.
Right.
So, you know, you run very successful businesses. So, maybe that's what's success.
Yeah.
So maybe I should be doing that because clearly that's successful because you go on really nice holidays or I see this person buying this house. So you start to just borrow other people's success and you borrow other people's definitions of what it means to feel good and to be happy. And you never actually figure out what it means for you, which of course, by logic, if you then keep chasing that version, you're never going to be happy because it's not yours.
Yeah.
You know, it's not your definition.
No, and I think this is really good, and it's now got me curious. Wanted to ask you, what does success mean to you?
Oh, yeah, that's a very good question. So if you asked me this probably 5 years ago, I would have given you the very typical answer of, you know, being the highest in my corporate role, being a VP, earning really, really good money. But now, for me, being successful truly just means doing something that I love on my terms and with people that I feel connected to. Because there's nothing worse than doing a job that you absolutely love, but the people you work with are terrible. Or, you know, people that aren't aligned with your values and people work with you for all the wrong reasons. I actually genuinely think you start to fall out of love with what you do if you start to get into that mindset of just, we talked about this earlier, you know, chasing money or chasing the fame or whatever it might be. I think you attract the wrong type of people with that.
Yeah, you're absolutely doing it. And sort of what's been like light bulb was going in my head about, obviously, when you was talking not so long ago about the 2019 moment where you bored your eyes out and you was in this world, like you say, chasing the big numbers. Obviously, you were burnout, right? So I think obviously, I mean, the burnout's obviously taught you a lot. It's given you that period to slow down, that being part, and your sort of version of success has changed. What do you think then, from your experience and from your learnings, what was the catalyst for you to change that version? What made that change from that success where it was all about the money and being like top dog, showy offy, sort of like, look at me, I've got this credibility, to now having it where I want it on my terms? Because I think that's quite a big change.
Do you know what? It's because it never felt like enough.
Right.
I got to a certain level and then my immediate thought was, okay, but what's next? Or I earned, you know, when I first got to like 50 grand, you know, that was a lot of money back then. I was like, okay, but how do I get to 60? And then how do I get to 80? So it just never felt like I got to a place where I genuinely thought, do you know what, that's okay for now. I'm happy here. It doesn't mean that I'm not ambitious and that I don't want to chase the next level, but it was constant. It's almost as soon as I got there, I was like, that's not enough. Can't, no, we need to move again. So I eventually started calling it having a bit of a magpie syndrome because I just went after every single shiny thing that was in front of me. And it was just always like, okay, I got here, but I was immediately in the gap again. I was like, okay, but how do I get to the next place? And I never took a moment to sort of look back and go, but what did it take for you to get to where you are? What did you gain in that, 5, 6, how many ever years it took you to where you got to? What did all the things that I never did that. I existed so much in the gap.
But who was you doing it all for?
Yeah, see, so part of me, I think, was doing it for my parents.
Right, I was thinking that.
Yeah, because I think they genuinely, which most parents will wanted me to have the best possible life that
100%.
they could give me, right?
Yeah.
Like they wanted me to go to university, be super successful, and I absolutely love them for that. So I think when I lost them so early on in my life, it became all about making them proud.
Yeah.
But at no point did I ever go, well, am I proud of what I'm achieving? It was always, am I making them proud? Am I making the right decisions for them? Which of course, I don't blame them. They wanted the best for me. But I never sort of just went, well, actually, is this good enough for me? Like, am I happy? If this is as far as I go, would that be a proud moment?
Yeah, I mean, I totally hear that. And I thank you for, again, sharing that. So really, you're sort of in that, there's that terms that they're using, obviously, the performance word, like pleasing v serving, right? So obviously, we're in the pleasing sort of angle, and then the serving part is obviously making sure you're serving yourself first.
Yes, absolutely.
So that you can serve others better, right? Like filling your own cup up first and stuff like that. I love the sort of part there where you'd spoken about, because obviously I thought, but I've got to ask that question, who's it for? And I thought straight away he was going to say that. But we do, don't we? A lot of it, we're doing it for others, but then we're losing ourselves in that process, which then obviously for you now, you said, but I want to do it for me and I want it to be on my terms, right? Now, I want to ask you this term, because obviously I hear this a lot in the employed world as well as self-employed, is about climbing the ladder. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, first of all, I don't really think ladders exist anymore, because if you look at most companies, they are becoming flatter, right?
There's not much growth.
No, they're removing layers. So you might have your entry level, a management level, and a director level, right? So if your entire definition of career success hangs on climbing some sort of ladder, it's going to be a very short-lived level of success. Or you're going to be where I was probably 4 years ago. I was already at the highest point I was going to get to in terms of my career with that particular business. The only way I was going to move was to go sideways. Now, sometimes that's fine, and you've got to move sideways or you've got to move down. But as far as going up, that wasn't going to happen, because the person above me wasn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. So I was faced with that decision of, do I stay here for the next 5 years and wait for her to move? And by the way, I absolutely loved her. She was like one of my favorite bosses. Or do I make the tougher decision and go and build an opportunity elsewhere? And I think that's the problem with career ladders. I mean, A, I don't think they exist anymore. But also B, I think they keep you trapped in some vision of a career that probably doesn't exist anymore. Getting to the top of an organization these days, unless you're on a fast track or you work for a startup or you've come in at quite a high level, it either takes a really long time to get to that top, or you've got to move a few times, which I think is also fine. I don't think you see sort of that tenure anymore that we used to see, 10, 12, 15
Where
years.
do you see yourself in 10 years?
I know. I hate that question.
I know. I've no idea.
I still don't know how to answer
1, 5, 10 years, yeah.
Exactly. But I just, ladders for me it's very old school language.
I know. That's why I thought I'd ask it, because I know this is a bit of a tangent, but sort of literally having a conversation with a guy in the sauna the other day, and he was like, he was really itching to go self-employed.
Okay.
But then, but he hasn't, because he's like been given the next promotion. So he's sort of like, I think I'll just stick. Yeah. So he's like, I'd just rather climb the ladder. But then I was like asking him, well, how long have you been in it already? And he's like, 10 years. So it's 10 years for him to get that.
Wow. Yeah,
promotion.
See, exactly. But it's the same thing when people say, oh, I've hit a ceiling. My challenge back to that is, have you hit a ceiling, or is the floor below you really sticky?
Yeah.
Are you very comfortable right now? Because if you earn quite good money, lots of, security, there's stability, you've got some form of career trajectory, there's some plan for you, why on earth would you rock the boat? Why would you suddenly give that up, right? So the floor becomes really sticky. So it's not always the ceiling above you. Sometimes it's the floor below you.
Yeah, I think that's really good, actually. Good analogy.
The same in business.
Yeah. No, I just think it's sort of like you wouldn't look at it like that, I think.
No.
And obviously having somebody, I guess, see it for you when you don't see it is really, really strong. I mean, obviously you've worked with many, many high performers. Obviously that's your field of expertise. What do you come across the most when it comes to these high pressure environments with what's like holding people back? What is that you come across?
It's the inner voice.
Is it?
Yeah. It's the constant, I'm not good enough, or this isn't good enough, or I should already be at the next thing, or the overthinking of decisions, or a conversation I had yesterday, or how did I come across? Did it land the way I wanted it to land? It's all inside the mind, which is fascinating to me, right? Because when you think about it, people spend so much time, money, resources, energy fixing everything below the shoulders, right? We eat healthy, we train, we go to gyms, we get personal trainers, coaches, all of those things, right? We want to feel great. But how much time and energy does anyone invest above the shoulders, right? How you think, how you act under pressure, how you talk to yourself under pressure. It's the same. It's also a muscle, right? Building confidence is a muscle. Building resilience is a muscle. Self-talk is a muscle. So if you train your muscles below your shoulders, why wouldn't you train the muscle above your shoulders?
I like that. I think I like that sort of above the shoulders because, I mean, working on the mind is something that, I don't know, I mean, do you think people just sort of, because obviously, if you think about children, like they're constantly learning, right? Like they're working on their mind or they're building this character, because obviously I'm noticing this now with our daughter and stuff like that. But what is it that you think people, if that is a problem, right? When you just say about inner critic and inner voice and all this like negative self-talk, if you want to call it, what can people do to work on that? Or why is it still such of an issue if people know that is a core problem?
It's because obviously the time invested, and it might even take money because you might want to work with a coach, whatever it might be, right? If you think about, if you did that for below the shoulders, you would probably start to see results within 4-6 weeks, right? If you've got a really good coach, PT, and they're really invested and you're invested, you can start to see visible changes. The challenge is if you don't know what you're looking for above the shoulders and you're starting to invest money with a coach or whatever, you wouldn't realize any of the changes that are happening because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're starting to change as a result.
I guess it's more internal, isn't it?
There's nothing visible that tells you you're making progress, right? So people tend to avoid doing, I think, the work above the shoulders because it's not as easy as changing what's below the shoulders.
Yeah, is there anything, okay then, so that I totally get that. Obviously it's internal, you can't see it. Obviously if it's inner voice, it's because people, I know, this has actually been quite common on the show where people's gone about inner critique, it's held me back, thoughts, all those sort of things, stress related, burnout. So obviously this is your game. This is obviously what you've worked on yourself for so many years. Is there anything that you could sort of openly say that, I'm not saying guaranteed to work, but something that they could start to look at or work on for them to build that muscle in the mind?
I would say just make it visible. Start making those things visible. So if you're, for example, going into a really high pressure or high stakes meeting, start to just take a bit of notice on how you feel when you walk into that meeting and what you do after.
Right.
So do you step away and start replaying that entire conversation? Do you step away and already think about, okay, but this is going to happen? So you start catastrophizing where something hasn't even happened yet. So you've got to start to make it visible, because if you can pick up on the patterns, then you know what you're working with, right? Because if every time you come out of a difficult conversation already replaying the next conversation, and it's not even happened yet, then of course that's a pattern. And now you know, okay, well, something needs to change here, because every time I catastrophize, I get myself so worked up, I then go into that meeting and what I catastrophized doesn't happen. And now I feel even worse because I've spent a week overthinking all of this and actually it was fine. But if you can spot the pattern, then you know what you're working with. So I would just start to make it visible. And
I like that. Yeah, make it visible. That's really good. And there's something that struck me, what you said there, and I'm sure, the guys watching this will most likely relate in some way, or maybe know people that do it, is, in your own sort of opinion, why is it that as human beings, we always make up a story of the outcome when it's not even happened yet, and it's always a negative outcome? Why does that, do you think, happens quite commonly for a lot of us?
Because you've got to think about the fact, like, if your brain came with an instruction manual, right? On page 1, it will say, do not die. That is the only job for your brain, is to keep you alive.
Yeah, survive, yeah.
So, of course, it's going to constantly scan for threat responses, right? It's constantly going to look for things in your environment that might be, and even if it's a perceived threat, your brain doesn't know that. It's a threat. So it's got to protect you from it, right? So, of course, if you're having maybe a difficult conversation, or a conversation that has a lot riding on it, your brain naturally will want to go, okay, well, how can I keep this person safe? Okay, this is a good way. Let's start to think about what the next conversation could be like. Because if I can plan my responses, then I'm less likely to be threatened in the moment, right? So, of course, if your brain is constantly just trying to keep you safe, even from perceived threats or perceived situations, then that's the most natural way for it to do that.
Yeah, I think the threat part, definitely. I think we do scan. And I feel that, totally get that. I'm sure people it's just those sort of awareness, isn't it? Just that sort of noticing a pattern. Like you say, the patterns of what you like before, what you like after, and those checking in moments, that slowing up, going back to the being part rather than constantly doing, because we just go through the hamster wheel of life, and we just sort of going around and around, and then you go, oh, it's now 2030, and it's like, where's that? Whoa, because a lot of us as well as and I know this, and I catch myself saying it, is like, time's flying by. Where's this time going? Why is it going by quick? It seems to go quicker as you go older.
That's definitely true.
Like, just because we take on so much though, right? But obviously in your, I mean, even in your sort of personal life, away from sort of this world, obviously you're under pressure. Because again, like, people, they're under high pressure. They're putting pressure on you to help them relieve some pressure. Course, What do you do, like, beyond sort of your work to help maybe release a bit of that pressure?
I mean, this is probably going to be everyone's response, but go to the gym. Like,
gym.
Honestly, I don't know whether I would have gotten to where I got to in my career without getting into fitness.
Really?
It has taught me discipline. It has taught me self-care. It has taught me focus. It's given me community.
Nice.
It's given me so much. And, people underestimate the power of going for a 5-minute walk, or,
movement.
a quick 5K run, or going and lifting, even if it's the smallest weights, because you've never lifted weights in your life. The release that you get from that, and you probably wouldn't even know it until you've done it a few times, just changing that environment, being with other people who are also trying to better themselves, genuinely, I think, has taught me so much and has gotten me to where I've gotten to in my career. I also box, which really helps, being able to punch.
Yeah, bang.
So how I love it. It's so much. But also, I think, so I just joined a CrossFit gym as well. I've never done CrossFit in my life. It's very hard. But even just that challenge outside of my normal
something
day
different.
to day. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like I'm engaging a different muscle now, a different part of the brain. So it's given me energy for everything else again.
I've got to ask you though, as your brain scanned a threat.
I did.
What am I doing here? I'm higher up. I'm fitness, and now I'm going into CrossFit world.
I'll tell you a perfect example. We did an intro to CrossFit class on Saturday with the gym I've just joined. So obviously they go through all the basic movements, and one of it is to do a handstand. I point blank refused. I have this unnatural fear of being upside down. I don't know where that comes from. Really? But yeah, so my brain scanned for a thread, saw the thread, I'm not doing it. I didn't even try.
Right. Would you try?
Maybe, I don't know.
No, okay. Just like, no, not for me.
I don't know what it is. It's like my brain thinks there's no wall when I go upside down, so it's not going to catch me.
I see.
So it's a very unnatural fear. But that was a perfect example of where just an intro and my brain went, we know we don't like that, so we're not going to do it. And I didn't.
I just thought I'd have to ask that. But that's brilliant though. At least you're honest about it as well. That's good. So I think really, obviously, you've gone through this fitness journey. That's had a massive impact. That's so important. There's a message that I hope the audience can feel from this, is how important it is to look after yourself.
Yeah.
And that self-care. Because that's like what you've just said quite honestly, is that it's helped your career. You wouldn't be where you are today without that looking after yourself first. But in sort of what you see and for yourself, what do you think the main reason people do sort of the other way around, like sort of so heavily focus on the career and let themselves sort of be at the bottom of the pile?
I think I would come back to, they just don't understand what success means to them. They are chasing a version of it that's not theirs. They're borrowing someone else's ambition. You know, they're looking at a successful career on paper and going, oh, that I want a bit of that. But it's maybe it's not for you. Maybe you're not even in the right industry.
Yeah.
You know, how many, like I started my career in recruitment.
Right.
Who wakes up at the age of 8 and goes, oh, I'd love to be a recruitment consultant?
Not really,
no, most people fall into it, right? And then maybe by trial and error, you figure out you're really good at it and you stay. I figured out that I was really great at the people element of it. And that's how I ended up developing a career in HR and then talent management and OD and then performance, right? So you start somewhere, but I think it's because people just sort of get on this hamster wheel. And it's very difficult to get off, especially if you're doing well. If you're doing really well at a job that's maybe not meant for you, it's very hard to go, maybe I should just chuck it all in and go and do something different. It is.
I think that's it, because obviously you've obviously had that feeling before where things are going really well. What was your calling then to sort of go, I'm not going to stay. This is not sustainable. This something's got to change. Something's got to give.
For me, it was the burnout in 29. Like it had to get to that point for me to realize that yes, I look successful on paper, but internally I was a shell of a person.
So you was a shell of a person. You broke down. What if you was to look back at that 2019 version of yourself? If you was to sit there and say what do you think of me right now? What would you say that version was like as an actual human being?
I mean, I've always been a relatively confident person, quite outgoing. I mean, working in recruitment, you sort of have to be, because it's all about people, right? But the whole work hard, play hard?
Yes.
I took that very literally.
Ah, right.
I worked very hard, but also played very hard.
What was the play part?
I live in London, so there's lots of things to do. But I was the typical recruiter, right? I was out every single night. I was, drinking with colleagues.
Okay, yeah. Entertaining though.
Yeah, but, getting home at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, no one needs to be doing that. No. And then turning up for work at 9 a.m., right? So I literally took it to heart. Like I worked super hard. I made sure my billings were really high. But then I also played. But I think sometimes it was also just the environment, right? Again, it comes back to the environment that you're in that can massively impact how you show up and how you perform. Now, for me, I think it was to the detriment. I sort of took it as, well, this is a high-performing environment that expects a lot of me, so I need to step up and meet that. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that everyone who works in recruitment does that, because you can certainly be successful without needing to party and go out all the time. But that was just, I think, the version of me that I was.
Was that your way of relieving pressure, though?
I think so, because it was fun.
Yeah, of course.
I don't drink anymore.
No,
I gave up a long time ago. But it was just, I think that was just what you did. And that's how I sort of felt. Yeah, I don't know, almost like that gave me that spur to go again and again, constantly.
So there's two drastic things there, right? Like there's two different types of pressures and stuff like that. And obviously it caught up with you. The cracks started to appear.
Yeah.
You became a shell of yourself. So when obviously that sort of come to an end and you were sort of like, right, something's got to change. What did you start to sort of discover about yourself when you started making these changes? What did you start to learn?
I was a lot braver than I think.
Really?
I resigned from my job without having another job to go to.
Did you?
Which I've never done in my life. I had a 4 weeks notice, and I'd always, whenever I've moved companies, I've always made sure that I had somewhere to go. But it got to the point where I was like, I don't even care what I do as long as it's not here. And I resigned. I had my 4 weeks notice, had no clue what I wanted to do. At that point, I did decide, though, that I wanted to move out of a sales type environment.
Right.
And I wanted to move into HR because I did my degree in HR, my first degree. And so I knew that it was going to be something people related, but in-house, outside of the recruitment world. So at least that I knew. I think my days in recruitment was done. But yeah, I definitely learned that I'm brave by doing that.
Well, that's massive to do that. The fact that you just sort of resigned without any sort of anything else in sort of the limelight. Now, just from that, a lot of people would probably take, wow, kudos to you. Again, that's a massive achievement to be able to do it. A lot of people probably wouldn't even think of it. Like, I would never leave anything without something lined up. I wouldn't put myself in that position because obviously life, responsibilities.
Yeah,
but when you made that decision and that sort of come to an end, what happened next? What was sort of, because obviously you'd always been in the next part, the chase the next, but this part was like unknown.
Yeah, it was a bit unfamiliar. It was definitely new territory for me. But I kind of just held on to the fact that I've always made it, right? I came from South Africa when I was 18. There was no one here to greet me. I had £500 in my pocket. I had no job. The most that I had done was sorted out my accommodation, right? Because I needed somewhere to live.
Yeah, of course.
But I got on it was also I didn't tell you this earlier. It was my first time ever being on a plane and leaving South Africa.
No.
I had never flown before. So even getting on the plane, I was like, am I on the right plane? Am I going to the right country? I could just see these visions of me ending up somewhere in like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But when I did all of that, when I resigned on the spot, I just kind of thought back, I've got a huge amount of resilience. Moving to a different country on your own, putting myself through university. So I just held on to some of those things.
Yeah, the evidence is there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I had also, the one thing that I've always been pretty good at is building strong networks around me. So I did also have a lot of support around me at that time. I had people who had gotten to where I wanted to get to, so I could lean into them for advice and support. How did you do that? What could I do? So it wasn't like I was completely on my own. I had to do it myself, but at least I built up those connections around me. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, the people around you, like your sort of support network.
Yeah,
exactly. I love that, the fact that you learned a lot, again, learned that resilience part. You didn't share that with me earlier about the sort of plane rides. Yeah, but that's so this has now got me thinking, and this all tie well together, about leaving South Africa at 18. What made that sort of maybe itch to scratch come for you, and why London?
Yeah, it's so funny. So when I finished high school, I actually applied to go to Cape Town University to study microbiology.
Oh, wow.
Which, I'm very glad I'm not a microbiologist now, because I have no clue why I even decided. But anyway, I didn't get a spot in Cape Town University just because they only took a certain amount of students for that course, and I just didn't get a spot. So my dad had always worked overseas his entire life. So he actually said to me, okay, well, instead of studying, one of the options was to go to join the Navy. I don't know where that came from. But the other option was, he said, why don't you go abroad and go and work for a bit? Because back then, this was 2005, it was a thing. You came to the UK, you did a 2-year working holiday, lots of South Africans did it, and then you went back home. So that's what I did. I applied for my visas, got it eventually. So the plan was to come for 2 years, because that was just a thing that South Africans did. You would work, you would travel, make a bit of money, and then you go back home. Yeah. But 21 years now, I'm still here. I never left,
That's mental.
I stayed. I did my degree through Staffordshire University, eventually got a work permit to stay because I was on a South African passport, and then got my British nationality a few years ago now. But it took 15 years to get to that point.
That's mad.
And it's really interesting when I think back, all of the people that have come and gone in those 15 years, lots of South Africans who ended up, my friends who went home because they just couldn't stay here anymore. It became unsustainable, or just didn't have the money. So even when I just think about that, the level of determination and the resource, and sort of going, I'm here now, I am making this work. And I think one of the things that sort of spurred me on is I didn't have a safety net, right? There was nothing to go back home to. I've still got my brother, so he lives there, and he's incredible. But as far as there's hardly any family left. I come from a very small family. Most of my immediate family are deceased.
Yes,
so for me, this was, you either make it or there wasn't a plan B.
I think this is great on your part. I mean, very inspirational how you've made it work, and obviously you've seen a lot happen. Obviously you've commitment. I mean, 15 years to get a passport, but it wasn't just about the passport, but the fact that you committed to come overseas, never been on a plane before. I mean, just even talking it out, you're just sort of checking in with it and going, hold on a minute, wow, actually, what? I'm going to give myself a bit of credit here, I just think it is incredible, obviously, what you've sort of done, but it's also, I guess, giving people a bit of inspiration that this can happen if someone's watching this abroad, that they want to, but also that probably how important it is to be very uncomfortable and maybe your back being against the wall, that really can help you find out who you truly are and who you are as a person, like what traits you've got. Because obviously, as we know, and you'll know this as well, we live in a world where everything's sort of at our fingertips. We can live quite comfortably, quite easy in some ways, or, we can sort of make the easy decision.
Of course,
So has there been a moment in your sort of business career so far that has been so uncomfortable, but it shaped you and made you, given you a bit of a feedback loop that, this is for you?
I think most days are uncomfortable, to be honest. Because when you're so determined and driven to do the thing that you really want to do, but then you look at the rest of the world, or you look at people who are in the same space as me, and you go, oh God, but they're so successful. Look at them, their keynote. There's a few people that I absolutely admire that are really great keynote speakers, and I'm like, but how did you get there? I just can't seem to get there.
Comparing,
I think it could, when you're in the business world, comparison is just, I don't think whether you're doing, whether you're at the start of your journey or you're super successful, I don't think that ever goes away.
No, you're always going to compare.
I think for me, most days are uncomfortable, to be honest, because also I'm quite critical, or not critical actually, I'm quite hard on myself, because I have particular places that I want to get to. And, if I don't get there, I'm always like, oh no, but there's something missing. What am I not doing? So I sometimes have to kind of step back and go, no, you're actually okay where you are, because look at how far you've come.
Well, just even that itself, taking that leap, I think there's a lot of evidence there that, you've got resilience and got skin in the game as well. I mean, 20 years already doing what you do, and obviously you're very, well academic and stuff like that. Obviously you've helped a lot of people. I'm going to sort of ask this question because it's more just for you. Obviously it's spotlights on you, but more just to give you that sort of pat on the back. And actually be where you're giving yourself some self-love. Because obviously, like you just said there, we can compare, we can look at everybody else, and that fear of not being good enough as well, even though we've got an abundance of experience. What would you say your unique ability is as a coach?
My energy. People always talk about my energy. Whether I'm talking to a CEO or whether I'm talking to someone who's early careers, I think I have this unique ability to help people see that there's more in them.
Really?
That the potential is there. You've just got to work for it.
Right.
I'm not a very fluffy person. I don't really know how else to say that. But if you've got potential, I'm coming for it. I want to get it out of you because I know you are capable of doing more. And sometimes people play small because of lots of different reasons, comparison or fear of failure or whatever it might be. So I think my energy is definitely my strongest ability as a coach.
What's your type of energy though? What is it? So, because obviously loads of people have energy, don't they? I know you've got the no fluff, but some people have the energy where it's like full on, sort of where you're like sitting on your seat, sort of like falling back. Some people have that really calm, energy where you just sort of feel like I could just listen to you while I'm meditating, sort of thing. What would you say your sort of energy is?
If I had to give it a word, it's probably a possibility. I think my energy gives you a sense of this is possible. I can do this.
Yeah.
But it's not hype. I'm not
a
motivational speaker type.
No,
person.
You're not sort of like would you say you're a cheerleader? We are a cheerleader, but you wouldn't say like I'm like woo, like woo. You're still quite like say direct.
Yeah. I think I'm very good at showing people that they have more to give. They're playing small. The potential is there. It's not a yes no question. Potential is always yes. We've just got to figure out potential for what. Where are you going?
Okay, so give us a. This is good. I like this. This is stuff I like to talk about. But I know people need to hear this as well because I think a lot of people don't feel like they're possible or they've got possibility to change. Can you give us an example of somebody you've worked with that was holding back, had potential, and you brought that out of them, and what you did? I know obviously it's hard to condense because you maybe worked with them over a period of time, but maybe something that.
So there's someone I'm working with at the moment still, and I mean he's an incredibly technical guy. He comes from an engineering background, but wants to pivot careers. So he wants to move into project management.
Right.
So he's taking care of the technical side, right? He's doing the courses, he's studying, he's making sure he has what he needs to move into that field. My role in this is helping him to uncover the confidence to actually do it.
Okay.
Because one of the things that he's facing into at the moment is the constant rejection, right? It's not easy to pivot careers when you don't have the experience for it, right? But he's so technically sound. So a lot of it is to look at how he looks after himself. So we spend a lot of time talking about sleep, how he's exercising, his nutrition, like does he actually feel good in himself? Does he feel like he can make this change? Because if you feel healthy, you start to think more positively, you start to see those opportunities. And then the other thing we're doing is to work on that self-talk again. So one of the things I said to him to do is whenever he gets, I don't know, a rejection or another no, what else could be true? And just think of another possibility, because of course the brain's going to default to the negative,
of course,
right? It's going to think of the worst possible case. Well, what else could be true? Well, maybe it's just not the right company that you looked at, or maybe they're just not looking for someone like you right now. There's lots of other things that could be true, but that one. So it's one of the first things I got him to do. It's just every time one of those either rejections came up or he started himself to think like, oh, this is not. Maybe I should just go back to shift work. What else could be true? Just that one thing, and you could almost do that in anything in life.
But but that's a really good little flip though, isn't it? Because like you just said there, our brains are sort of drawn to the sort of negative, rather than actually looking, like you say, at the possibility.
Yeah, we all have a negativity bias.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you're doing super well, I'm pretty sure you're probably telling yourself right now, I can be better there, or I should do this differently. It's just a negativity bias we all have, and unless you're aware of it and change the script, that's all you would keep feeding your brain is the constant gap. I live in the gap. There's another gap. I need to fill it.
So going back to that, yeah, absolutely. So going back to that then, so obviously he's now, I know we're using this as an example, but even if it was in general terms, like flipping that perspective on looking at more the possible positive rather than it just being, no, it's got to be a negative.
Yeah.
What impact does that have?
Well, it's sort of that, obviously if you're getting that many no's, you've got to somehow make that exciting, right?
Yeah.
Because it might be 100 no's before it's a yes. But the way that we've reframed that is, well, one more no is another no closer to yes. So again, we've just flipped that negative experience into saying, okay, well, it's one more closer to yes. And it's another one closer to yes, which actually then makes seeking out the no's quite exciting.
Bit more fun.
Yeah, it's the same way if you ran a business and you were pitching for work, right? Every time someone says no, it can be quite easy to go, oh my God, like, Why? Why aren't they picking me? No, great. Okay, no, it's another one closer to yes.
It is, yeah. I think that's a good actual thing there, because that obviously, I'm someone who's quite openly spoken about. I fear rejection,
Yeah, of course,
obviously
yeah.
through sport, but obviously I know so many people here will be watching this and going, "That's why I'm not sort of going for it, because I feel like failure. It's going to reject me because I'm not made to do this sort of thing."
Yeah.
But what you just said there about, well, actually, if you go out and do it, and you do get a no, obviously it might eventually be that it's not for you,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but like collect the evidence of a nose and see where those no's take you, and see if you are that bit
Yeah.
closer to where it is you want to be.
Exactly. Yeah, because to be honest with you, if you don't get no's, then you're never going to get a yes either. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be comfortable, I think, sometimes not hearing the answer that you want.
Yeah.
And like you said, at some point you also do have to be realistic.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Whether you're working with a coach or you've got, a business coach, whatever it might be. But I think you've got to just reframe the relationship you have with the rejection and the pressure that you feel. Especially, I think, pressure, because when you're early days in building your business or even building your career, it comes with a lot of pressure, right? But are you avoiding pressure altogether, or are you starting to play with pressure a little bit? Two very different things, right? And there's, stages in between. And sometimes, a lot of the time when we talk about pressure, everyone only ever talks about managing it. But what if you play with pressure a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's quite a good point there, the play part, the fun part, or make it, I'm not saying play it as a game, but have a bit of fun with it, because obviously everything's quite serious, and I guess pressure can even be deemed as, too much pressure can be deemed as like, oh, you got too much pressure, or, you're going to boil over, you're going to sort of keel over, but actually, like for you there, it's like, rather than just managing it, like, or manage, be playful with it. I think that's really good.
Like you said earlier, say yes to a couple of things that maybe, just put a bit of pressure, helpful pressure. I think healthy pressure, not to a point where pressure is now your constant state.
Sure.
But just a few things that maybe would have scared you before. Say yes, and what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? A good question. That you should ask yourself anyway.
Exactly.
But look, we're getting towards the end of the episode. Yvette, this has been, I think there's like part 10 on this. I think there were 10 different parts. But honestly, I just think sort of what we've delved into today has been honestly amazing. And obviously this is a question I ask every guest. I did tell you, didn't I? I didn't actually ask you. I didn't ask you because I thought I'm just going to put it in the episode and see how you see what answer comes apart from it. So I'd love to know from your perspective, what does mastering your life mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good big question. How much time do I have? What does mastering my life mean to me? I think genuinely being able to wake up every day and feel like I am making a positive contribution, even if it's just to one single person. If out of this entire podcast, one person does something differently, excellent, job well done for me. That's success. That's me mastering my life.
Oh, that's amazing. So you're giving back.
Yeah,
obviously,
giving back.
That's amazing. I love that. And it relates to earlier what you said in the episode about living life on your terms. You're actually going, this is what I want for my life, not for others, just for my life, to be able to give that to people. I think is brilliant. Well, look, if anyone's sort of watching this back, listening back whilst driving, and they want to sort of have a conversation with you, or maybe connect with you and follow your journey, and where's the best place for them to...
So I probably hang out most on Instagram. So the Mental Performance Coach is where you'll find me, or LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn as well. So always happy to have conversations and chats. Or if something resonated today, feel free, ask some questions, challenge. If something didn't resonate, or you got, that's a bit of nonsense.
Yeah. No, totally. Well, look, obviously, we'll make sure that both those things, Instagram and obviously LinkedIn, is clickable in there, so people can obviously follow your journey. Because I think, obviously, a lot of people are going to resonate with this today, and it's just nice to know that there's a space for them to follow it, to see more about what it is that you do and stuff like that. But look, final thing from me, appreciate you coming from London as well to join us in the studio today. And I've really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.